It is the one absolute truth they cannot control, the one mirror they cannot manipulate. You picture them with arrogance, power, and a smirk that always wins. But what happens when the physical vessel they use to extract supply begins to fail them? You really need to hear this, because their inevitable ending is much darker than you imagine. I want you to take a deep breath and settle in, because today we are looking at a reality few people talk about. We spend so much time discussing the emotional damage they leave behind. But there is a silent, unavoidable consequence waiting for them. It is a biological reckoning that no amount of grandiosity or gaslighting can ever hold back. You have probably wondered if they will ever face justice for the pain they caused you. You watch them move on, wearing that same confident mask, and it feels entirely unfair. It feels like they got away with destroying your peace. But the objective truth is that their internal toxicity eventually demands a severe physical and mental toll. Let us look at this objectively, stripping away the emotional bias. A narcissist lives in a constant state of physiological hyperarousal. They are perpetually defending a fragile false self against the threat of being exposed. This is not just a psychological game. This is a relentless, exhausting burden placed directly onto their nervous system. Think about what it takes to maintain a lie every single minute of your life. The paranoia, the envy, the underlying shame they must suppress just to function. That chronic stress floods their body with cortisol. Over years and decades, this invisible poison begins to eat away at their vitality. The mask stays up, but the body starts breaking. I want to validate exactly what you are feeling right now. You survived their psychological warfare, and you carry those scars. But while you are doing the hard work of healing, they are deteriorating from the inside out. They cannot heal because they refuse to acknowledge the sickness. And that denial becomes the architect of their own ruin. It starts subtly at first, a shift you might not even notice if you are still trapped in their web. A sudden loss of energy, a strange new ailment, or a hollow look settling deep into their eyes. The grandiosity begins to look a little desperate. The charm requires more effort. The physical vessel is quietly buckling under the immense weight. They will never admit they are failing. Instead, they project their decay onto everyone around them. If they feel sick, it is your fault for stressing them out. If they look gaunt or aged, it is because you drained them. But deep down, in the quiet moments they cannot avoid, they feel their own mortality creeping in. And it terrifies them. This is the secret knowledge they desperately want to hide from you. They need you to believe they are invincible, untouched by the consequences of their abuse. But human biology is incredibly unforgiving to chronic, unresolved toxicity. We are going to break down exactly how this manifests and why it is the ultimate, inescapable punishment. So, if you have ever questioned your sanity, or if you still believe they are out there living a perfect life, keep watching. You are about to understand the profound tragedy of the narcissistic life cycle. The universe has a way of balancing the scales, not through magic, but through the objective reality of the human body breaking down. To truly understand this physical collapse, we have to look closely at the engine driving it. A narcissist does not experience the world like you do. Their entire existence revolves around securing external validation, what we call narcissistic supply. Without it, they psychologically starve. But acquiring it requires relentless, exhausting work. Imagine driving a car with the emergency brake completely pulled up, pushing the pedal all the way to the floor. The engine screams, the friction generates massive heat, but you refuse to stop. That is the internal landscape of a narcissist. They are burning out their own wiring just to maintain the illusion of superiority and total control. This chronic need for control keeps their sympathetic nervous system locked in fight or flight mode. They are always scanning the room for threats, perceived slights, or signs of abandonment. Objectively, a human body cannot sustain this level of cortisol and adrenaline forever. Eventually, the physiological bill comes due, and it is expensive. You might have noticed how poorly they handle even the slightest physical discomfort. A minor cold becomes a catastrophic event. Because illness forces them to confront their vulnerability. Sickness shatters the delusion of omnipotence. A failing body reminds them that they are merely human, which is the exact truth they hate the most. And then there is the deep, repressed shame. Underneath the arrogance lies an empty, fractured core. They spend decades building a fortress to hide this void. Holding those walls up takes energy away from their immune system, organs, and cellular repair. Their mind is literally cannibalizing their own physical health to keep the illusion alive. They cannot self-soothe. When you feel stressed, you might meditate, cry, or talk to a friend. You process the emotion. The narcissist cannot do this. They project, rage, or numb themselves with addictions. Alcohol, food, reckless behaviors. These are just desperate attempts to regulate a nervous system that is completely out of control. This constant dysregulation creates an environment highly susceptible to disease. Inflammation runs rampant. The gut microbiome is destroyed by chronic stress and poor coping mechanisms. They age faster. Their skin loses its color. The hollow, gaunt appearance you might see later in their life is the physical manifestation of a starved soul. It is crucial to look at this objectively, without the emotional bias of our past trauma. This is not about wishing them harm. This is about understanding clinical reality. The toxicity they spewed at you was just the overflow of what was already poisoning them. You escaped the blast zone, but they are trapped inside the radiation forever. They live in a state of hypervigilance, and that exhaustion compounds over time. Sleep is rarely restful for someone haunted by paranoia and repressed guilt. Even if they claim they sleep like a baby, their subconscious is a war zone. Over years, this lack of genuine restorative rest accelerates their cellular aging and physical decline. So when you picture them, do not see the untouchable god they pretended to be. See the reality. See a profoundly sick individual whose own defensive mechanisms are slowly destroying their host. The tragedy is that their psychological rigidity prevents them from ever seeking the kind of deep, internal healing that could actually save them. There comes a distinct moment when the scales tip. The facade finally cracks under the biological pressure. This is the dramatic turning point where their physical reality can no longer be masked by their grandiosity. The charisma that used to effortlessly pull in supply suddenly feels forced, heavy, and visibly exhausting to maintain. You might hear through the grapevine that they are sick. Or maybe you run into them, and the sight of them stops you cold. They look frail. The vibrant, imposing figure who used to dominate your reality now appears gaunt, diminished, and startlingly weak. The energy field around them, once so intensely overwhelming, has completely collapsed. And this is where their real panic sets in. Their body is their primary tool for manipulation. Whether they used attractiveness to seduce, or intimidation to control, that weapon is now broken. They look in the mirror and finally see the one enemy they cannot gaslight or silent treatment into submission, their very own inescapable mortality. Watch how they react to this decline. They become intensely bitter and profoundly resentful of healthy people. The envy, which was always present, mutates into a dark, venomous rage. They look at your vitality, your peace, and your glowing health, and they absolutely despise you for it. Because you possess the one thing they can never steal. They will demand endless sympathy, turning their illness into a new source of narcissistic supply. They become the ultimate victim. Everyone must drop everything to cater to their misery. But even as people try to help, the narcissist remains ungrateful. They drain their caretakers dry, punishing the world for their failing physical state. But the supply they get from pity is like junk food. It does not sustain them the way admiration or fear did. It is a pathetic substitute, and they know it. You can see the quiet desperation in their eyes. The shrinking of their world. The walls closing in. The realization that their false self cannot protect them from biological reality. They will push away anyone who tells them the truth about their condition. Doctors become the enemy. Medical advice is ignored if it contradicts their delusions of grandeur. They would rather rot in their rigid denial than admit they are vulnerable patients who need help. Their ego literally becomes the very thing that accelerates their death. This is the profound paradox of the narcissist. They spent their entire life trying to be seen as immortal and superior, yet that exact obsession is what ruined their mortal vessel. The isolation deepens. The enablers eventually burn out and leave. The grand stage they built for themselves empties out, leaving only a sickly, angry director. It is a chilling scene to witness. You realize the monster under your bed was just a desperately sick person who traded their soul for a mask. The fear you once held dissolves into a cold, objective pity. They are trapped in a failing prison of flesh, suffocating under the weight of the lies they spent a whole lifetime intensely defending. And then it stops. Just like that, the grand performance grinds to a pathetic halt. The manipulation tactics simply lack the energy to deploy. The dramatic turning point is complete. The predator has become the prey to their own pathology, and there is absolutely no escape hatch, no new victim, and no clever lie that can save them now. The collapse is not a sudden crash. It is a slow, agonizing slide into darkness. This is the consequence of living a life entirely devoid of authentic connection. When a normal person falls ill, they are surrounded by the genuine warmth of loved ones. When the narcissist falls ill, they are surrounded by the cold echoes of their own abuse. Look at their inner circle during this decline. It is a ghost town. The flying monkeys have scattered. The secondary sources of supply have moved on to less exhausting people. Who is left to change the bandages, to listen to the complaints, to sit by the bed? Only the deeply trauma-bonded, and even they are operating on fumes of obligation. As the physical disease progresses, the psychological deterioration mirrors it perfectly. The gaunt, hollowed-out face reflects a soul that has been starving for decades. The paranoia reaches terrifying new heights. They suspect their caretakers are poisoning them, stealing from them, or plotting their demise. They trust absolutely no one. This is a very dark, unflinching truth. Their physical suffering is compounded by the terrifying realization that they are entirely alone. They may have people in the room, but there is no real connection. They spent their life viewing humans as objects to be used. Now, in their most vulnerable state, they feel terrifyingly objectified themselves. You cannot help but look at this through an objective, analytical lens. The universe demands equilibrium. You cannot extract life force from others without eventually draining your own reserves. The gaunt body is a ledger of every lie told, every boundary violated, every tear they caused. Their flesh keeps the exact score of their cruelty. They will try one last time to pull you back in. They will weaponize their sickness. They will send the message that they are dying, hoping your empathy will override your boundaries. They want you back, not to apologize, but to use you as a human shield against the void. Do not fall for it. The sickness does not suddenly give them a soul. If you go back, you will only find a black hole, hungrier and more desperate than before. A diseased narcissist is still a narcissist. Their illness does not magically generate empathy or remorse. It only amplifies their entitlement and their rage at an unfair world. They want you to drown with them, to suffer alongside them in the dark. Understand that this collapse is their personal hell. They are hyper-aware of their loss of status. The fading of their looks, the loss of their strength, the humiliating reality of relying on others, it is a daily, excruciating torture. They are forced to live in the crumbling ruins of the false empire they spent their whole life building. There is no redemption arc here. There is no deathbed confession where they finally see the light and offer you closure, expecting that will only bring you more pain. The tragic reality is that they will double down on their delusions right up until the final breath. They will blame the world, blame the doctors, and absolutely blame you. So let them face the consequences of their own design. The gaunt, disease-ridden body is not a punishment inflicted by a cruel God. It is the natural, inevitable result of a life lived in opposition to truth and love. You did not cause this collapse, you cannot cure it, and it is entirely not your responsibility to control the wreckage. We must now shift the focus back to where it truly belongs. You have witnessed the darkness, and you have survived their attempt to pull you into their void. You need to recognize the incredible resilience of your own biology. While their body is shutting down under the weight of their toxicity, yours is primed and ready for renewal. The contrast is staggering. You process your trauma, you cry, you seek truth, and you heal. Your nervous system is slowly learning that the war is over. Your cortisol levels are dropping. Your energy is returning. You are aging with grace and authenticity, while they are decaying behind a heavy, suffocating mask that they can never remove. Do not waste another ounce of your precious life force feeling guilty for their inevitable decline. Empathy is a beautiful gift, but it must be paired with sharp, objective boundaries. Giving your empathy to a sick narcissist is like pouring clean water into a toxic spill. It does not purify the poison, it only wastes your beautiful water. You are finally free. Their punishment is their own, locked entirely within their own skin. You do not have to exact revenge, nor do you have to wish them ill. The cold, mechanical reality of their biological breakdown is handling all the justice you could ever need. Your only job now is to turn away from the wreckage and walk into the sun. Think about the incredible lightness of being authentic. You can breathe deeply without the fear of being unmasked. You can experience genuine love, profound joy, and quiet peace. These are experiences entirely blocked from their existence. They traded all of the beautiful human experiences for a cheap, temporary illusion of total control. As you rebuild your life, stay grounded in this objective truth. Whenever the trauma bond tries to pull you back into fond memories, remember the gaunt, hollow reality of their present state. Remember that the charm was just a survival mechanism for a parasite that eventually killed its host. You survived, and you are stepping into a new era. Your healing is the ultimate triumph. It proves that the human spirit, when grounded in honesty and vulnerability, can recover from devastating abuse. Every healthy meal you eat, every full night of sleep you get, every time you laugh from the belly, you are winning. You are reclaiming the vitality that they tried so desperately to steal. You have walked through the fire, and you did not burn. You learned the secret knowledge of the darkest corners of human psychology, and instead of becoming bitter, you became incredibly wise. You are now a beacon for others who are still lost in the fog. Your thriving, radiant life is the ultimate rebellion against their toxic destruction. Allow yourself to feel the profound peace that comes with total acceptance. The scales are balanced. The truth has been spoken out loud. You can finally lay down your armor. You no longer have to explain yourself, defend yourself, or protect yourself from a ghost that is already fading away into the absolute misery of its own making. Take a deep, restorative breath. You made it out alive, whole, and capable of beautiful things. They are trapped forever in a decaying prison of their own design, but the door to your future is wide open. Step through it with absolute certainty. The best revenge is not their destruction. The best revenge is your radiant, unstoppable peace.